Stories that sound 100% made up but are actually true. Number 1. I'm not sure if it's coincidental or not, but celebrities die after getting their pictures taken with me. First it was Storm Thorgerson. I met him at an art gallery in Chicago and got my picture taken with him. 9 months later, dead. Then it was Carrie Fisher. I met her at Chicago Comic Con and got a photo op with her. 6 months later, dead. Number 2. I was eating lunch at Wendy's when Bill Murray sat down at my table, stole a fry, dipped it into my Frosty, and ate it. He then looked at me and said, "Nobody's gonna believe you," and walked away. Number 3. I went from homeless drug addict to a director position at a tech company in a span of 15 years. Number 4. My father had a heart attack many years ago, and I showed up to the hospital at 3 a.m. Given the time and the fact that he was in ICU, I initially wasn't allowed in. However, I was finally let in by a nurse who calmed me down and allowed me to see my father. He was so kind to our family throughout my dad's hospital stay. About 6 months later, my paternal grandmother was in the ICU for a medical issue, and again, we were cared for by this nurse. About a year later, I received a call from my dad telling me to turn on CNN. Turns out, the nurse was Charles Cullen, who famously confessed to murdering up to 40 patients. Number 5. During my sophomore year of high school, my sister and her friend tried to set me up on a blind date with the guy who mowed her parents' lawn. It never worked out, and we never met. 2 years later, during senior year, I met and started dating the guy who I'd eventually marry. A couple years later, we discovered that we were supposed to have been each other's blind date sophomore year. We'll have been together 17 years this March. Number 6. When I was around 8, my dog followed my dad to wait with me for my school bus. While they were waiting, my dad saw Fluffy get hit by a truck, so he took him and buried him. We then went out of town for the weekend. But on Sunday evening when we got home, Fluffy was standing on our porch. Dad couldn't believe it and told us, "I buried him on Friday." Turns out, Fluffy had just been knocked out cold, so he rose from the dead and waited on us to come home. Number 7. My sister had a huge mental breakdown her junior year of high school and dropped out of public school. She enrolled online for her last 2 years of high school. She refused to do any of the work, so I, who was in middle school at the time, was forced by my dad to do her schoolwork. I finished 8th grade and 9th grade at public school during the day and, in the evening, I did her 11th and 12th grade schooling. The lowest grade I earned masquerading as my sister was a 94, so I'm secretly pretty proud of that considering the age difference. Number 8. I accidentally set my best friend up on a blind date with her ex-husband. I was going out on a first date with a guy, and he asked if I had a friend for his friend, so I invited my best friend along, and then the guys showed up, their jaws dropped, and we had mini margaritas. Number 9. My boyfriend and I moved into the same apartment my grandparents had lived in after World War II. We didn't know until my mom was going through their old stuff to make a Remembrance Day piece for her front hall and found an old letter addressed to them at my address. Number 10. I have been struck by lightning, bitten by a copperhead, burned in a house fire, broken 6 ribs, lost most of my left lung, and dislocated my eyeball. All in the same year. Please subscribe, like, and share.